Hello everyone! Today we will talk about the ways how to inform and involve citizens in participatory budgeting processes. The presentation will touch the suggested means as well as key messaging aspects to ensure the necessary effect is achieved. But let's start from the beginning. Besides providing leaders with insights in what the citizens want and need, participatory budget offers additional opportunities to increase engagement and morale in the local community, which is why it is especially important to remember that their involvement should be ensured in all stages of this process. To make sure that the end result is reached efficiently, citizens should take part in launching, running, as well as evaluating the local program for it. So let's start with understanding how to get their attention and interest to take part in this process. To reach participatory budget as concept efficiently, the core messaging aspect should be well considered. Just as it is with any other initiative or activity, the interest of potential participants can be attained only when pointing out aspects that they find relevant or even more will benefit from in future. So what are, so to say, key selling points of participatory budget? Let's talk briefly about each of those. The first and the most obvious one is the fact that participatory budget is a tool for implementing principles of democracy in real life. Besides bridging the politicians and citizens, for some, participatory budget is the first activity that enables them to get involved in community life and government activities. It is also an important tool that increases transparency of decision making and shines the light on existing malpractices. Through making informed decisions in regard to different stages of participatory budget, the citizens become more active and informed about the local issues, their causes, and the potential solutions. And not less importantly, they get educated and more aware on diversity of opinions and perspectives. Just by introducing the concept of participatory budget, the citizens might also realize that it is a more efficient way to generate change in the neighborhoods, because they will be the experts on what should be done and also have stronger sense of the ownership over locally implemented solutions. One of the most prominent benefits, though, especially to particular groups and community, might be the fact that it is a way to practice social justice and give a say to the underrepresented ones. And last but not least, the regular meetings that are held within participatory budget process build a sense of community, which is a crucial benefit for the improvements of the life quality locally. Besides all of the previously mentioned aspects, one should strongly consider also the locally implemented infrastructure of participatory budgeting, because it is the vessel to bringing across the messaging and facilitate the process efficiently. One of the best tools to manage this has proven to be social media, but it is important to consider how it is used. First and foremost, communities that use participatory budgeting need institutional social media platform policies. For example, a sufficient number of community leaders should be empowered to be the ones updating the social media platforms. Additionally, it is very important to understand that regular and considered work on social media should be a part of the whole plan, not just an afterthought. And that will surely require some investments in training the staff as well as the citizens on using these platforms properly. Besides that, social media platforms should be used complementary to other forms of engagement and mobilization of the local community. So, what should you know about the social media as an integral part of participatory budgeting infrastructure? As I mentioned already, it can be used in conjunction with other means of communication just to ensure a sustainable and effective facilitation of participatory budgeting process. Additionally, one should keep in mind to ensure a balance between procedural regulations of social media platforms and the need for constant, consistent, timely, and accurate updating of those. Even though this is an effective tool, it is underused to date and therefore poses a great potential for communities working with participatory budget. And the last but not least is the concern about security. Expanding the use of social media and introducing electronic or digital voting as a part of participation should be carefully considered and crafted in a way that does not undermine the legitimacy of these activities. Increasing the level of engagement and participation is a common challenge, or at least a task that any community involved in participatory budgeting has. Nonetheless, there are a few approaches or principles that might help, and here are they. The first approach is rooted in the efficiency of resources. Using already existing and active platforms will save both time and money. Even more so, community members will receive the information in a format that is convenient for them. Meanwhile, testing and trying new means of communication is encouraged as well. The second approach is about collaborating. Participatory budgeting is a collaborative process where different stakeholders come together and generate positive impact. The same should reflect also in the social media channels. The content and the communication in general should be planned as a two-way conversation, and even more so enable connecting across neighborhoods and districts. The third thing to keep in mind is the fact that social media is a chance to include the excluded populations, and the platforms should be used according to this notion. And the fourth thing is the content of messaging. It should be considered and diverse so that different people are reached. To top it all off, community leaders should always ask themselves, why does it even matter when planning their communication content? Assessing and evaluating the impact and the reach of participatory budgeting process is an important step towards increasing the positive effects. It allows improving and building on top of the existing results. The good news is not all information and best practices should be experienced at one's own skin to make them viable. Cross-sectoral exchange and sharing experiences among communities is one of the ways how to make the process way faster and more efficient. Another obvious direction for advancements is that both communities and academic staff should look into latest technologies for spreading participatory budgeting more broadly. For example, voting apps or databases for sharing information could be a great addition to the systems. Similarly, the feedback on the process should be collected from all the involved stakeholders, and subsequently necessary changes should be implemented in the existing practices on social media platforms. We already talked briefly about the need to use diverse messaging and channels to reach broader community, especially the groups that are usually underrepresented in the decision-making process. Just like with any other communication plan, the most effective combination of channels should be used also in this case. Namely, it is important to combine the previously discussed aspects of social media with some more traditional means of engaging communities. Each of the communities will have their own successful formula though, but here are a few examples that you could use in your work. First, it has proven that direct communication, like going door to door and making phone calls, goes a long way, or using the power of the already engaged members and their circles of acquaintances to get the message across. Besides social media like Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, one could also consider sending SMSs to the ones who are more difficult to engage. Another suggestion concerning the engagement of community members that one should remember is connected to the design and planning of the involvement and meetings. Always consider the needs of the participants and organize the process around those. For example, to motivate participation, you might need to provide childcare or make the meetings more enjoyable by providing delicious snacks. And remember that there will need to be a lot of educating and explaining, which could be covered also by smart communication tactics. And this is where we come to one of the most common misconceptions. It is very unlikely that just social media on its own will ensure participatory budgeting process. The success lies far beyond that. Besides trustworthiness of the sender and the relevance of the content, the personal efforts of reaching out will go a far way. For example, as I mentioned already, a call from community leader will increase the level of participation significantly. One more thing to consider is the perspective of the messaging. These messages should be relevant and interesting to the audience. With that said, one of the most common mistakes is communicating from the perspective of a person that is already interested in the concept, which more often so is not the case. Crafting messages that are appealing for someone who is actually clueless about participatory budgeting might prove a way more efficient approach. And in the last slide, I would like to underline the necessity to carefully consider the ways how the underrepresented or excluded members of community can be reached. And here it doesn't mean only the ones who are usually less active or engaged in their community lives. To include the say of people with limited social media availability, like the elderly, the poor, the less educated, and the new immigrants, some targeted outreach activities should be planned. For example, just to meet the needs of these groups, additional participatory budgeting meetings could take place. So that was it for today. I would like to thank you very much for your attention and wish you good luck with achieving the desired impact in the local communities. Bye bye.